We're going to be running through operations and functions of a 6100 Gen 4 controller. This would also pertain to our 6100 Gen 3, which had a slight overlap in years. You guys will have both Gen 3 and 4. So let's get started first with the Ultra Arm Patrol Commander Ultra Arm layout. That's going to be your main interface right here, literally an armrest. With, in this setup, 5 joysticks. Not every setup's going to have 5 joysticks. This particular one does. It is a plow truck, or a tow plow truck. So starting left to right, we have our plow up, down, left, right. Left wing heel and wing toe, up, down, left, right. Right wing heel and toe, left, right, up, down. Your tow plow, up, down, deploy, recall, and your hoist, up and down. You can see all these are green, indicating functioning normally. This particular one, the hoist, is currently red. That means it's locked out and inoperable. It does have a momentary interlock, we call it, on the top button. So in order for that hoist to operate, you press and hold that top button and you'd be able to run your hoist functions up and down. Let go, it returns back to a lock state. It's a safety feature of this state. Make sure that it's set up that way. There's a toggle switch here. This is just a switch added later on. It's not necessarily from us, but that gives you tow plow left functionality, parked, and tow plow right in this scenario. So in this setup, tow plow right is active, and you'd be able to deploy right or recall left. There's also 5 switches on here. First 2 are with your plow curls, left and right, down and up. You can operate those independently from one another. There's a power float that I'll get to in a second. An auto recall, which I'll also get to in a second, and a spreader on-off switch. So you can see on our screen currently, we are in what's called an off state. So you may hear it referred to as a summer mode, for instance. Anyway, the spreader is not functional. So any spreader controls are taken out of the loop. All joysticks are normal, but the spreader is off. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. You can see the screen came to life. Check gate setting, that's something we'll get to in a second, so I'll just clear that out. So you can see there's the overall layout of the spreader control screen. We have information, application information up top. We have our soft keys at the bottom and another information pane on the right hand side, but we'll get to that in a second. This top bar that is currently blank, that is going to give you your warnings and status notifications. For instance, a tow plow deployed left, tow plow deployed right. It's going to be indicated in that top bar up there. So let's take a look at a function available. I said I'd come back to this power float and a regular float setup for our plow up down. I'm going to run plow down. If you press and hold for 3 seconds on that function, it goes into what's called a standard float. Plow down float active. You see that on that top portion of the screen. So that means that plow float is running. Now that plow float just lets the cylinder float, in a sense lets the plow float over the ground. If you do not want that function active, if you put the plow down and you don't want that power float running, you pull back on the stick once and that disables that plow float. Power float, if that is turned on and active, it's the same scenario. You push your plow down and hold for 3 seconds. We are now in what's called a power float active. And what that does is lifts a specific amount of weight. However it's calibrated, it lifts that weight off the plow blade. Very useful for light snow and if you are trying to save cutting edges and whatnot. So power float is there and available, but you would have to have this switch on. Press and hold down for 3 seconds for your plow down. You can see we are flashing, so it's letting us know the power float is active. Again, if you don't want that active, click back once, and we have now disabled the power float. And just a word about auto recall here. So auto recall is also available as well. That's a momentary switch as well. So auto recall, whatever functions you have deployed at the time, let's say it's front plow down, left wing deployed, you press auto recall, it recalls both those functions to their home position. So whatever functions are out currently, it brings back home. And of course we have our spreader on off, which we covered already as well. This here is our operator interface. So this is the main spreader control of the system is all run through this keypad here, amongst other functions, but we'll get to those in a minute. So you can see this is labeled on, push, blast, push, and they are color coded. So you take a look at the control screen. Green is for your application rates. Blue is for your spinner speed. On off, push down, we're running. Push again, we're in standby mode. If you were to push the blast, blast is set up already in calibration. So blast runs, it's gonna run for 15 seconds and return back to normal mode. Or you can cancel it out by pressing blast again. Joysticks also have a couple buttons on top. We went through the hoist setup already, but it also has buttons on the plow up down and the left wing setup. So they correlate directly with these push buttons here. So that's spreader on off. See on the screen, we went to run. And this is blast on the second one in. So we can see we went to blast mode and we can cancel at any time. This is what's called a nav stick or navigation stick that allows us to navigate the screen here back and forth. So you can see I'm going back and forth on the menu pane down below. There's 4 sets of boxes here. They equal to the soft keys that are on this spreader control. So for instance, I'm going to go to backlighting. You increase or decrease the backlighting with the soft keys as they correlate with what's on the screen here. So again, our nav stick, we can click back and forth through the different pages of functions on the lower side. I'm going to get all the way over to, there's a utility pane right here. Once you're in that side, you can navigate up to this information pane here, which kind of allows you to customize what you want to see on your screen. So we've got air temp, road temp, and whatnot on there already. We can toggle back and forth and change settings to whatever we want to see on there. One word of advice, if you wanted your air temp down below instead of on top, you would deselect it from this pane here. Then you would have air temp available to put on that bottom section. But all that is done through this navigation stick right here. And now we can toggle back and forth again with what we're dealing with on the bottom section there. So functionality wise, let's start from the beginning. This particular truck is a conveyor chain with a left-right auger setup, or left cross, right cross setup on the front side. The auger is running in normal mode. It's running towards the front of the truck or towards the cab. The conveyor chain, I should say, is running towards the front of the cab. We do have reverse available that would go to the back of the truck. You can see I just enabled auger reverse. It is now green. I'm going to deselect that, and auger reverse. Auger is running in normal mode now, not reverse. Cross left and cross right active. One of those is going to be chosen at all times. So cross right, cross left. pre-wet is also available for selection and deselection. So you can see the brine section here is grayed out at this time. Pre-wet is not selected on the lower bars, so I'm going to go ahead and select that, and you can see brine is now enabled, and that would allow us, as we go from standby to spread, brine will be part of the application. You can change your brine application rate by using the white nav stick here. Again, these are all settings that will be preloaded for you already, depending on the material that you have chosen. And that's in gallons per ton for the brine. Paging over, we're going to take a look at implements. So this particular truck is set up to run a tow plow. So I'm going to click on implements. Truck is no function. No function. Verbiage is a little strange there, but when it's selected as none, it means it's in standard granular application. If you were to click on direct, that would mean that there's a direct slide-in unit or direct application being done on this truck. We're going to leave it at none, but you can see here is where tow plow would be selected. You select tow plow, and the system does get upset because we do not have a tow plow hooked up to this particular truck at the moment. So you can see direct modules have stopped communicating. The system's upset because it is not seeing the direct modules on the tow plow, and it's looking for them. This is something that once you get a tow plow hooked up, you're going to need to get the mechanics involved so they can select those DLA modules properly for you. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to none. Yes, I want to change implements. So that's the implement function. We also have an unload function here, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. We have a granular unload and pre-wet unload, both set at 100% currently. So I just selected by pushing down on the nav stick the granular unload. Right now in this scenario we're running at 100% of that valve function, and you press green to run the output, so that's going to run our conveyor to unload granular setup. You can run the spinner if you want. Most people, I believe, leave it at 0, just so you're dropping straight down. You maybe run your spinner at the end just to clear everything off the spinner. So I'm going to press down on the nav stick to get out of there. And it's the same thing with the pre-wet. You can run your output to offload your liquid if you wanted to do that as well. Back to the main screen here, we do have a data set up here. You can click that. Generally, I believe operators are tasked with gathering their current totals. So you can see there's season totals and an error log, which you shouldn't really have to worry about much. Current totals, if we select that, we can go into summary report and view, and that gives you a view of the current totals since the last time you cleared it out. Press down to back out of there, and you can go to export USB, which right now it's grayed out. There is no USB plugged into the system. I'm going to go ahead and plug one in. We'll get a shot of that in a minute. So you can see export USB has now turned blue, and it automatically populates your truck number here, so you would click down on the nav stick for confirmation. You can export all your data.
1 second.
Okay, now that we've exported our data to a USB drive, you can then go to clear current totals if you want. It'll warn you, are you sure you want to, yes or no. I'm just going to hit no. I don't want to clear anything out here at the moment. And then you can back out, again using this nav stick to get back to your home screen. Calibration, you're not going to have to worry about that. You're going to be locked out of all calibration settings, and that's the way you want it. So you're not going to have to worry about that calibration tab. What you will have to worry about is the material tab. So I'll click on that, Right now, you can see material-wise, everything is going to be set up in calibration for you. I believe it's 3 materials the state's running. Straight salt, 50/50, and 80/20, I believe is the way it's set up. Each are going to have their own application rates and their own gate height settings. I'll get to that in a second. So you can see here, we're currently running salt. I'm going to change that to an 80/20. And it's going to give you a warning. Notice, make sure your gate is set at the proper height to match this material. Click nav stick to continue. So I'll click yes. Go ahead. It is telling us you need to have your gate height at 4 inches. So you need to physically make sure that that gate height on the back of the truck, or where you're running out of, is set at that 4-inch height. The controller is not going to know, or it's not going to be able to verify that you have done that. So if it thinks it's at 4 inches and you're running at 2, your application rates are going to be off. So that's very important to make sure that that is verified physically on the truck. And here's where you can change your pre-wet material, of which there is only one. They're only running brine. So that's the material setting here on the operator interface. Here you can see we got, again, the backlight that we kind of went through. Sim speed, you shouldn't need to use that ever. That basically puts a truck in a simulated speed, generally used for testing purposes, troubleshooting, that sort of thing. And there's also an aux power button. Aux power is useful for the off season. If you're running a broom, for instance, let's say, you can see aux power is now active, and it brings us to a completely separate screen. Press green to start, and you can increase or decrease that valve percentage with the green knob. So right now, if I were to activate it, we're running at 75% of that valve, hydraulic valve capacity. Generally, that's used for the broom settings up front. We're running an aux power. So I'm going to disable aux power, and we're back to normal settings here. When you're done with the controller, it's highly recommended you kind of get in the habit of turning the spreader off. So we get into that mode there. That way, you can't accidentally bump functions, maybe deadhead a the conveyor or a spinner or something along those lines. It's basically off. As you power the truck down, it's going to give you a warning as well that dash key loss detected, and that's fine. It gives you kind of a countdown. It'll shut down in 4 seconds. You can also press the nav stick just to shut everything down. And it goes through a boot down process, so just let it go through its process. It does need to go through that. Okay, that's the operator side of this baby.
Sweet.